Hey mama. Are you pregnant and planning to breastfeed? Are you worried that breastfeeding may not work out for you? Are you wondering what you can do to increase your chances of having a good breastfeeding experience? I'm going to share what you can do to prepare for breastfeeding during pregnancy to help have a good breastfeeding experience. Hey mamas, welcome to my channel. My name is Andrea Tran and this is Breastfeeding Confidential. I'm a registered nurse and a lactation consultant, an IBCLC, and I've been helping moms and babies breastfeed for over 26 years, and I want to help you too. So hit that subscribe button, ding that bell so you'll get notified every time I post a video with helpful breastfeeding tips. And if you find this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. Today, I'm going to give you 11 ways to prepare for breastfeeding while you're still pregnant. And I'm also going to tell you what is the one big mistake that most women make that causes breastfeeding problems. And I'm going to tell you how you can avoid it. Tip number 1, line up breastfeeding help ahead of time. Don't wait until you have a million questions or you're experiencing breastfeeding problems. Get the name of at least 2 lactation consultants that you can call when you have questions, problems, or concerns. Tip number 2, write a breastfeeding plan. Now you've probably heard of a birth plan. A breastfeeding plan is similar. It is a written communication that you can give the hospital or birth center where you're giving birth about the things that you want or you don't want. Now, of course, it's all going to depend on how things go, but for some hospitals, it can be really helpful for them to know that you don't want pacifiers, you do want to room in, and how you feel about supplementation and things like that. I have a template for a breastfeeding plan in my breastfeeding planner, and I'll put a link for that in the description. Tip number 3, look at your nipples. Now, some people have flat nipples, some moms have inverted nipples, and these are things that can cause issues potentially with breastfeeding. And if you know what to do about it in those situations, you're going to be 3 steps ahead of the game. Tip number 4, know how often you need to feed your baby. Now this is so important and there is so much misinformation about it. You can go ahead and check my video where I talk about that. Tip number 5, learn how to have a good milk supply right from the start. I wrote a blog post about this that I'll put a link in the description. Tip number 6, put Breastfeeding Essentials on your baby registry. I have a handout that lists all the things that you want to have for breastfeeding, and I'll put a link to that in my description. Tip number 7, get a breast pump. Now, check with your insurance to see if they provide a pump and what kind of options. It's possible that what they provide you with may not meet your needs, so you want to make sure you get the best pump for you. Tip number 8, make breastfeeding baskets. Now these are baskets of all the essentials that you'll need when you're breastfeeding. Things like bra pads and diaper changing essentials and a water bottle. I'll put a link to the blog post I wrote about all the things you need in your breastfeeding baskets. And you just put these in the places around your home where you frequently breastfeed. And then everything is right there. You don't have to, get up and go looking for it. It's just right where you need it. Tip number 9, make a plan for going back to work if you're going to be going back to work after your baby is born. I have several things that address that in my breastfeeding planner. Tip number 10, get a good breastfeeding book or 2. Now, I wrote a book about 52 tips for the first year of breastfeeding that takes you from birth through the first birthday, and I'll leave a link for that in the description. But you want to make sure that you have some reliable sources that you can check when you have questions in the middle of the night and things like that. Another favorite book of mine is The Nursing Mother's Companion, and I'll go ahead and put a link to that in the description as well. That's a book that I have recommended to moms for as long as I've been a lactation consultant. This last tip is probably the most important tip. Take a breastfeeding course while you're still pregnant. Let me tell you why. The biggest mistake that a lot of women make is thinking that because breastfeeding is natural, it is, that it'll be easy. It often isn't. So they don't prepare. They think the baby will be born and it'll all go fine. Or if I have problems, I can get help in the hospital from the lactation consultants. And then they get home and they're frantically Googling when they have questions and problems and concerns. My experience has been that moms who take classes just have a much better breastfeeding experience in those early days when they're trying to get breastfeeding established. A good class is going to prepare you for the most common questions, the most common problems and how to solve them, the things that you need to do in the early days and weeks to get breastfeeding well established, have a good milk supply, know how much your baby is getting to eat. So where can you get a class? A lot of hospitals offer breastfeeding classes. An increasingly popular option is to take a breastfeeding course online. Now, the nice thing about taking a breastfeeding class online is that you can go through the material at your own pace. You can watch it in the comfort of your own home, in your jammies or sipping on some tea or whatever makes you comfortable. You can set up the environment where you learn best. If you want to know more about the online breastfeeding class that I have, check out the link in the description. One of the nice things about taking a course like mine is that you can refer back to it when you have questions. So even after your baby is born, when you're going to have so many questions, all the lessons are going to be right there available for you to check again. So if you're going to do one thing to prepare for breastfeeding, take a breastfeeding course. So I hope all these tips help you get prepared for breastfeeding. And check out my blog, Breastfeeding Confidential. I have lots of different blog posts on lots of different topics. And consider joining my Breastfeeding Confidential Facebook group. I'll leave a link to that in the description. And best of luck when you have your baby with breastfeeding. Bye-bye, Mama.